Most people watching this right now believe danger is something that happens far away, another country, another city, another headline. That belief is exactly what gets people hurt because real danger does not announce itself. It does not give you time to prepare. It moves fast, quiet, and without mercy. And the uncomfortable truth is this: when things go bad, most people freeze. I have seen it happen. I have lived it. And that is why the unit I served in exists, not to react to chaos, but to end it. No one is deadlier than us because no one is trained to move when fear shuts everyone else down. I spent over a decade in the most elite special operations force in the world, not in training simulations, not in theory, in real environments where hesitation meant someone did not come home. I learned very early that modern danger does not look like the movies. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is sudden. One moment, everything is normal. The next, you are inside a situation that will decide whether you live or die. And here is what most people never realize: strength does not save you there. Weapons do not save you. Numbers do not save you. What saves you is speed of decision and absolute control over your mind. According to internal military assessments and after-action reports, the biggest predictor of failure in combat is not lack of equipment. It is cognitive overload, the moment when the brain panics and shuts down. That is the moment our unit is trained to dominate. We are not built to be fearless. Fear is always there. The difference is we know how to operate with it sitting on our chest, screaming at us to stop. That is what makes us deadly. Not aggression, not anger, control. Most people think elite units are created to fight harder. That is wrong. We were created because the modern battlefield is chaos. Communications fail, plans collapse, technology breaks. When that happens, you either adapt instantly or you die. I watched highly trained people from conventional forces lock up because the situation stopped matching the plan. They waited for orders that never came. That hesitation costs lives. Our training removes that hesitation. We do not wait for clarity, we create it. Here is the mistake civilians make when they think about danger. They believe preparation means knowing what to do once something happens. That is already too late. By the time you realize you are in trouble, your body has already dumped stress hormones into your system. Your hands shake, your vision narrows, your breathing goes shallow. Most people interpret that as a signal to stop. We are taught the opposite. That physiological chaos is the green light. It means you are alive, alert, and capable. The small secret that works is learning to act inside that discomfort instead of trying to escape it. Researchers studying high-stress performance discovered that elite operators do not experience less fear than average people. They experience it earlier, accept it faster, and move through it with training. That is the difference. We rehearse chaos until it feels familiar. That familiarity is what looks like confidence from the outside. From the inside, it is discipline. Pure, boring, repeatable discipline. This is why I say no one is deadlier than us. Not because we enjoy violence, not because we seek it, but because when everything goes wrong, when everyone else is overwhelmed, when the situation is most dangerous, we move forward. While others are still asking what is happening, we are already acting. That first decision, made under pressure, changes everything. And once you understand that, you start to see the world differently. Danger is not something to fear, it is something to be prepared for. Most people imagine the deadliest unit in the world is built by taking the strongest bodies and pushing them even harder. That belief sounds logical, but it is wrong. Strength is common. Endurance is common. What is rare is a mind that does not collapse when comfort disappears. The selection process is not designed to see how much pain you can take. It is designed to reveal who you become when you are stripped of sleep, warmth, certainty, and ego. That is where the truth comes out. Before I ever earned the Trident, I watched men who looked unstoppable on paper disappear one by one. College athletes, lifelong lifters, fighters who believed they had already won before day one. The danger is not the cold water or the miles or the weight. The danger is the voice that shows up in your head when your body is exhausted and the instructors are silent. That voice sounds reasonable. It tells you that quitting is smart, that you have proven enough, that no one will blame you. That is the moment selection actually begins. According to military psychologists who studied special operations candidates across multiple units, physical performance predicts very little about who makes it through. Stress tolerance, emotional regulation, and decision-making under fatigue predict almost everything. That is not an opinion. That is data. The body can be trained quickly. The mind cannot be faked. Selection exists to expose that difference. Here is where most candidates make the critical mistake. They treat selection like a challenge to survive instead of a system designed to break patterns. They fight the process, they count the hours, they look for an end. That thinking shrinks your world until all you can feel is pain. The people who last understand a quiet truth. You do not win selection by enduring everything. You win by narrowing your focus to the next controllable action, one step, one breath, one order executed cleanly. There is a small trick that works, and it sounds almost too simple to matter. You stop negotiating with yourself. The moment you argue internally, you are already losing energy. I learned to replace thought with action. When the order comes, you move. Not emotionally, not heroically, mechanically. That shuts down the fear loop. Researchers who study elite performers call this task-based cognition. You anchor your brain to execution, not outcome. Fear loses its grip when it has no room to speak. Sleep deprivation is where this becomes obvious. After days without rest, the mind starts lying to you. It exaggerates discomfort. It predicts failure. It convinces you that everyone else is coping better than you are. They are not. They are just not listening to the noise. That is why instructors remove encouragement. Silence forces you to confront yourself. If your motivation depends on praise, you will quit. If your discipline is internal, you keep moving. People at home often ask why the selection feels cruel. The answer is simple. Combat does not care about fairness. It does not care about your intentions. Selection is not meant to be humane. It is meant to be honest. It shows you exactly who you are under pressure. Most people do not like that answer because it removes excuses. By the time you earn a place in the unit, you understand something most never will. Your limits were never physical. They were mental guardrails designed to keep you comfortable, not capable. Once those guardrails are exposed, they lose power. That is why the unit is dangerous, not because of what we can do, but because of what we are no longer controlled by. People love to believe that technology wins wars, smarter weapons, faster drones, better surveillance. It feels comforting to think machines will handle danger for us. I have watched that belief get people killed. Technology is a tool. Tools fail. Batteries die. Signals drop. Software freezes. And when that happens, the only thing left is the human standing there with a decision to make. That is why our unit will always be more dangerous than any piece of equipment ever built. I have operated in environments where the plan collapsed within minutes. Communications were gone, air support was delayed, maps were outdated. None of that mattered because we were trained for that exact moment. Most forces are trained to execute a plan. We are trained to execute intent. That difference is everything. When you understand the objective deeply enough, you do not need instructions for every step. You adapt, you move, you solve. According to defense researchers studying modern conflict, the most unpredictable variable on the battlefield is not the enemy. It is complexity, urban terrain, civilian presence, conflicting intelligence. These conditions overwhelm automated systems and rigid command structures. Human adaptability still outperforms machines when chaos multiplies. That adaptability is not natural. It is trained through exposure to uncertainty until it stops feeling threatening. The danger for most people is assuming that more tools equal more safety. I see this outside the military too. People buy systems, apps, plans, and gadgets believing those will remove risk. Then the moment something unexpected happens, they freeze. Tools create a false sense of security. Training creates capability. That is a hard truth, and it makes people uncomfortable because training requires suffering and repetition. The common mistake is relying on perfect conditions. Most people perform well when everything goes right. That means nothing. Performance only matters when things go wrong. Our training is intentionally messy. Scenarios change mid-execution. Information is incomplete. Decisions are punished if they are slow, not if they are imperfect. That rewires your brain. You stop searching for certainty and start creating momentum. There is a small secret that makes this work. We do not aim to make the right decision. We aim to make a decision and then adjust faster than the situation changes. Speed beats precision when the environment is unstable. Researchers studying elite decision makers found that high performers commit earlier and correct more often. Low performers wait, hoping clarity will appear. It never does. Technology amplifies whoever is using it. In untrained hands, it magnifies hesitation. In trained hands, it magnifies effectiveness. That is why the unit invests more time in mindset than gear. You can hand a drone to someone who panics, and it becomes useless. You can hand nothing to someone trained, and they will still find a way to dominate the situation. This is also why the deadliest moments are often quiet. No alarms, no warnings, just a choice that has to be made now. That is when the human element decides everything. Machines cannot feel pressure. They cannot adapt intent. They cannot improvise meaning. We can, and that is why, no matter how advanced technology becomes, the most dangerous weapon on the battlefield will always be a disciplined human mind that refuses to shut down under stress. That is what makes the unit lethal. Not the tools we carry, but the chaos we are comfortable operating inside. Most people think violence is physical. It is not. Physical force is usually the last step in a much longer process. The real battle happens before the first move is made in the mind of the person across from you. I learned very quickly that the most powerful weapon we carry is not a rifle or a knife. It is certainty. When the other side realizes you are not hesitating, not doubting, not waiting for permission, something breaks inside them. That break ends fights before they begin. The danger most people never see is psychological collapse. Fear does not make people run first. It makes them pause. That pause is deadly. In high-risk environments, even a second of hesitation can shift control to someone else. According to combat psychology research used by multiple NATO forces, uncertainty creates more casualties than aggression. When people do not know what is happening or what will happen next, their performance drops sharply. Our training is designed to remove that uncertainty from us and transfer it to the enemy. Here is the mistake people make when they talk about confidence. They believe confidence is something you feel before you act. That is backwards. Waiting to feel ready is how you stay stuck. Confidence is the byproduct of movement. We are trained to act first, cleanly, and decisively, even when doubt is present. The moment you move with purpose, you force the environment to respond to you. That alone shifts the psychological balance. There is a small, brutal trick that makes this work. You commit fully to your first action. Half steps invite resistance. Full commitment creates shock. Shock creates hesitation in the other person. I have seen situations where no shots were fired simply because the other side lost the psychological initiative. They were reacting while we were executing. That gap is everything. Researchers studying law enforcement and military confrontations found that individuals who seize initiative within the first moments are far more likely to control the outcome regardless of physical size or numbers. Initiative creates authority. Authority creates compliance. This is why we train to move decisively, even with incomplete information. Waiting feels safer, but it hands power away. Fear never disappears. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying or inexperienced. Fear is information. It sharpens perception. The problem is when fear turns inward, when you start questioning yourself, your plan, your worth. Our training externalizes fear. We turn it into focus. Breathing slows, vision stabilizes, the body follows the mind's lead. This is not motivational talk, it is conditioning. Most people believe psychological dominance comes from intimidation. That is wrong. It comes from calm. A calm person in chaos is terrifying. It signals control. When everyone else is frantic, calm becomes a weapon. The enemy starts filling in the blanks with their own worst assumptions. That mental spiral does more damage than any threat ever could. This applies far beyond combat. Business negotiations, crisis situations, personal confrontations. The person who moves with clarity while others hesitate sets the frame. They decide what happens next. That is why the unit trains this relentlessly. Because once you understand how the mind breaks under pressure, you learn how to prevent your own from breaking and how to exploit hesitation in others. This is what people mean when they say the unit is deadly. It is not about violence, it is about control. Control of yourself first, then the situation. Once you have that, the outcome is rarely in doubt. There is a moment in every evolution where your body gives you a clear message. Stop. It feels absolute. Muscles burn, lungs seize. The mind starts building a case for why continuing is dangerous, irresponsible, even pointless. Most people believe that message is truth. It is not. It is a warning light, not an empty tank. I learned that lesson the hard way in Buds, and it changed how I understand limits forever. The first time I truly hit that wall, I was convinced I was done. Everything in me said I had reached the edge. Then an instructor walked past and said something that sounded almost casual. You are at about 40%. That was it. No encouragement, no sympathy, just information. At the time, it felt insulting. Later, it felt like freedom. The 40% rule is not a slogan. It is a recognition of how the human brain protects itself. According to neuroscience research on fatigue and performance, the brain begins sending stop signals long before the body is actually depleted. These signals exist to preserve safety, not to measure capability. For most people, those signals go unquestioned. For us, they become data. When your mind says you are done, it usually means you are just getting started. The danger is believing your thoughts under stress. Exhaustion distorts reality, time stretches, pain amplifies. Every step feels heavier than the last. The common mistake people make is treating that internal dialogue as a command instead of a suggestion. The moment you obey it, your world shrinks. The mission ends. The potential disappears. The solution is not motivation. Motivation fades quickly under pressure. The solution is structure. When everything hurts, you remove choice. You fall back on systems, breathing patterns, cadence, small tasks executed on repeat. That is the small secret that works. You do not try to push through the wall. You go around it by making the moment smaller. One more step, one more rep, one more minute. Researchers studying endurance athletes and special operations personnel found that elite performers use chunking under extreme stress. They break overwhelming effort into manageable units that prevent the brain from perceiving threat. This keeps the nervous system from shutting down. It is not heroic, it is technical. The 40% rule also exposes a deeper truth. Most limits are negotiated, not discovered. We stop because stopping feels safe, because continuing carries uncertainty, because we fear what happens if we fail after pushing further. In Buddhist, you learn that quitting does not remove pain, it just transfers it. The physical pain ends, the psychological weight stays forever. This principle applies far beyond training. In life, business, leadership, most people quit internally long before they stop externally. They lower standards, they avoid hard conversations, they settle, not because they are incapable, but because the discomfort triggers the same safety mechanisms. Understanding the 40% rule gives you leverage over that instinct. The unit does not create superhuman bodies. It creates a different relationship with discomfort. Pain becomes a signal to focus, not retreat. Fatigue becomes a checkpoint, not a dead end. Once you experience that shift, you cannot unsee it. You realize how much potential you have been leaving unused simply because your mind asked you to stop and you listened. That is why the 40% rule is dangerous. It removes excuses, it forces responsibility, and once you know you are capable of more than you thought, there is no going back to who you were before. The world is not getting calmer. It is getting faster, louder, and more unstable. That is not fear-mongering. That is observation. Systems are more connected, which means when one thing breaks, the effects spread instantly. Most people sense this, even if they cannot explain it. They feel a constant background tension, like something is always about to happen. The danger is not the chaos itself. The danger is being unprepared when it arrives. Units like mine exist because there will always be moments when rules fail, structures collapse, and hesitation costs lives. No amount of technology or policy can remove that reality. According to strategic analysts who study future conflict and crisis response, instability is no longer an exception. It is the baseline. That is why the mindset we train will always matter, not just for war, but for leadership, business, and life. The mistake most people make is waiting for certainty before they act. They want perfect information, perfect timing, perfect confidence. That moment never comes. In unstable environments, clarity is created through movement. You act, observe the response, adjust, and act again. This loop is what keeps you ahead of events instead of buried under them. That is how we operate, not recklessly, relentlessly. There is a small but critical truth that makes this possible. Preparation happens long before fear shows up. You do not rise to the occasion. You fall back on your training. That phrase is repeated so often because it is accurate. Under pressure, you will not become a better version of yourself. You will become a more honest one. That honesty is what scares people. It exposes gaps. It exposes weakness. Most avoid that exposure. We seek it. Researchers studying crisis leadership found that individuals who rehearse failure scenarios outperform those who only visualize success. Why? Because they are not surprised when things go wrong. Surprise is what paralyzes. Familiarity breeds speed. That is why our training is uncomfortable by design. Comfort creates fragility. Discomfort builds resilience. This is where the message becomes personal. You do not need to be a SEAL to adopt this mindset. You need to stop outsourcing your sense of safety. Stop believing someone else will handle the hard moments for you. Whether it is a financial crisis, a health scare, or a leadership decision, the same rules apply. Hesitation amplifies damage. Action creates options. The unit will always exist because there will always be people willing to step into uncertainty instead of away from it. That willingness is rare. It is not glamorous. It is quiet. It is disciplined. And it is built, not born. The deadliest quality we have is not violence. It is refusal. Refusal to quit. Refusal to freeze. Refusal to hand control over to fear. When people hear no one is deadlier than us, they misunderstand it. They imagine ego. They imagine arrogance. What it really means is responsibility. Responsibility to move when others cannot, to decide when others hesitate, to carry the weight of consequences so others do not have to. That is not about being fearless. It is about being reliable. If you take anything from this, let it be this. The world will test you. It always does. The question is not whether pressure will come. The question is who you will be when it does. You can train for that moment or be shaped by it. The choice is yours.